My name is Elowen Thorne. I'm 26 years old and I'm a financial data analyst in Boston. On my birthday, standing in our hallway with a vanilla cake I had bought still sitting in its white box, my mother looked me in the eye and said, "You are a mistake I regret." I stood there, picked up her truck keys and answered, "Hope you enjoy the quiet." I walked out to the driveway and drove. 20 minutes later, my phone buzzed against the passenger seat. "Return it now or you are going to jail." I read it twice, smiled for the first time all day, and typed my answer. "Sure thing." 60 minutes later, 2 police cars pulled up outside her house, light bars sweeping across the porch where my brother stood, and one patrol sergeant with a USB drive was about to ask my mother a question she had spent months praying nobody would ever ask out loud. Here is what none of them understood yet. Those 2 police cars were only the beginning. What my mom set in motion with one text message would cost this family far more than a truck. And by the end of that summer, not one of our lives looked the same. Drop a comment and be sure to subscribe. Sunday, August 23, 2026. It is 10:30 p.m. I am lying in my bed in a quiet apartment in Boston, Massachusetts. I have a heavy book resting on my lap. It is a book about financial risk management. I read books like this to calm my mind. In my office, I am very good at finding the truth. But for 26 years, I was completely blind to the truth inside my own home. Let me take you back to May 12, 2024. It was exactly 1 week before my 26th birthday. At that time, I was living with my mother, Thalassa, in a large, beautiful house in a rich suburb just outside of Boston. We lived with my older brother, Callahan. My mother owned a small local real estate business. To the neighbors, we looked like the perfect, happy American family. My mother always kept the front garden perfectly cut. She always wore clean iron dresses, even just to drink her morning tea on the porch. But inside the house, the air was always heavy. That Tuesday morning, I was sitting at our large oak dining table. I was drinking plain black coffee and checking my work emails before driving to the city. My mother walked into the kitchen. She smelled of expensive lavender perfume. "Good morning, Mom," I said softly. She did not answer me right away. She walked past me, opened the shiny refrigerator, and took out a carton of premium orange juice. A minute later, Callahan walked in. He was 30 years old, but he woke up at 10 a.m. every day. He rubbed his eyes and sat across from me. "Good morning, my star," my mother said. Her voice completely changed. It became warm and bright. She poured the orange juice into a glass and placed it gently in front of him. Then, she turned to me. Her smile dropped just a little bit. It was a very tiny change, but I felt it in my chest. She reached into her pocket and slid a folded white paper across the table toward me. "The property tax bill came in the mail today," she said in a flat, quiet voice. "It is $3,240. I need you to transfer the money from your savings account by Friday. My business had a slow month, and I have image to maintain." I looked at the bill. I felt a tight knot in my stomach. I made good money as an analyst, but I was already paying for the house electricity, the internet, the water, and all the groceries. I was slowly draining my own future to keep her comfortable. "Mom," I said carefully, keeping my voice low, "I can help with half of it. But I also just paid the $1,200 insurance bill for your truck last week." Her eyes went cold. She was talking about her prized possession. Parked outside in the driveway was a shiny silver 2023 Ford F-150 truck. It was huge and custom-made. She did not need a truck for real estate, but she loved driving it because it made her look powerful and successful to her rich clients. "It is a business expense," my mother said slowly, wrapping her fingers around her teacup. "You sit at a desk all day pressing buttons. You do not understand how the real world works. I provide the roof over your head. I thought you would be grateful." Callahan drank his juice and did not look up. "Just pay the bill, Elowen. Do not upset her." "Of course," I whispered, looking down at my hands. "I will transfer it today." "Thank you," she smiled. It was a polite, perfect smile that did not reach her eyes. This was the toxic balance of our house. I was the silent bank account. I was the one who fixed the problems. Callahan was the one who received the love. I accepted this because I thought that if I just worked harder, if I paid one more bill, if I was perfectly quiet and useful, she would eventually love me too. My 26th birthday was coming up in 7 days. On May 19th, I did not want a big party. I just wanted my mother to look at me and say she was proud of me. I had even bought myself a small vanilla cake, hoping we could just sit in the kitchen and cut it together. I did not know that my birthday would be the day the quiet pain finally turned into a roaring fire. I did not know she was about to do something that would change my life forever. The days between paying the property tax and my birthday moved very slowly. At my office on the 14th floor of a tall glass building in downtown Boston, I buried myself in my work. On Thursday, May 16th, I sat at my desk and looked at my personal bank account on my phone. The balance was painfully low. The $3,240 tax payment and the $1,200 truck insurance had taken almost everything I saved that month. Still, I smiled a little. Sunday was my 26th birthday. I thought that by fixing my mother's financial problems, I had bought myself a peaceful weekend. Sunday, May 19th, 2024, arrived. It was a cloudy gray afternoon. I finished a half-day shift at the office. Before heading home, I walked down Tremont Street and stopped at a small corner bakery. I bought a small vanilla cake for $15. It had white frosting and one single pink candle in the center. I held the white cardboard box carefully against my chest as I rode the MBTA commuter rail back to our quiet suburb. I walked the 4 blocks from the train station to our house. The air was sticky and warm. As I walked up the driveway, I noticed my mother's shiny silver 2023 Ford F-150 truck was parked perfectly in its usual spot. I opened the heavy front door. "Mom? Callahan? I brought some cake," I called out softly. The house was very quiet. I walked into the main hallway. My heart suddenly stopped. Sitting by the bottom of the wooden stairs were 2 large black suitcases. I recognized them immediately. They were the old suitcases I used when I moved away for college. Next to them was a small cardboard box filled with my winter coats and a few books from my bedroom. I slowly put the cake box down on the hallway table. My hands started to shake. My mother walked out of the living room. She was wearing a crisp white blouse and holding a cup of hot tea. She looked completely relaxed, as if she were just watching television. Callahan walked out behind her, looking down at his phone. "What is this?" I asked. My voice came out as a tiny whisper. My mother took a small sip of her tea. "Callahan is moving his new girlfriend Ainsley into the house tomorrow," she said smoothly. Her voice was flat and calm, like she was reading a grocery list. "They need the master bedroom. I am moving into your room, so you need to find somewhere else to be." I stared at her. I could not breathe. "Mom, it is my birthday." She placed her teacup on a side table. She smoothed a tiny wrinkle on her white blouse. She did not look at my face. She looked at the wall behind me. "I have housed you for 26 years, she said in a polite, cold tone. "You paid the tax bill, which is the least you could do for living here. But there is simply no space for you anymore. I packed your things this morning. Do not make a scene. It is bad for my blood pressure." I looked at Callahan. "Callahan, you are letting her do this? Today?" He finally looked up from his phone. He sighed, looking annoyed. "Elowen, come on. Ainsley has a lot of boxes. Just get an apartment in the city closer to your job. It is not a big deal." I felt a cold rush of air in my chest. The quiet pain I had lived with my whole life suddenly turned into a sharp knife. I looked at the woman who gave birth to me. I had drained my bank account for her. I had paid for the insurance on the truck sitting outside. I had bought my own birthday cake just to share a peaceful moment with her. "I have no money for an apartment," I said, my voice shaking. "I gave you all my savings on Tuesday." My mother finally looked directly into my eyes. Her face was completely empty of love. "That is your problem," she said softly. "You have always been so difficult. You are a mistake I regret." Those words hung in the air. The silence in the hallway was heavier than stone. In that 1 second, 26 years of hoping, trying, and silently suffering just died inside me. The tears in my eyes dried up. A strange, very cold calmness washed over my brain. I was a data analyst. I survived by looking at facts. The fact was, she never loved me, and she never would. I looked down at the hallway table. Right next to my $15 vanilla cake were the heavy black keys to her prized 2023 Ford F-150 truck. I reached out and picked up the keys. They felt cold and heavy in my hand. I grabbed the handle of my largest suitcase. I looked right at my mother's confused face. "Hope you enjoy the quiet," I said. I turned around, opened the front door, and walked out. I threw my bags into the back of the shiny silver truck. I climbed into the driver's seat, locked the doors, and started the engine. The loud roar of the truck broke the silence of the neighborhood. I saw my mother run out onto the porch, her perfect white blouse blowing in the wind, her mouth open in shock. I put the truck in drive and pulled out of the driveway, leaving my old life behind in the rearview mirror. I drove the shiny silver truck away from the house. My hands gripped the leather steering wheel so hard that my fingers turned white. I turned onto Route 9, driving away from the wealthy suburbs. The sky quickly turned dark gray, and heavy rain began to hit the windshield. The wipers moved back and forth with a quiet, steady sound. Inside the truck, the air smelled heavily of my mother's expensive lavender perfume. Every time I breathed in, it felt like a heavy stone was pressing down on my chest. It was my 26th birthday. I had no home, no bed, and only 2 black suitcases in the back seat. I pulled off the main road and parked the truck in the empty corner of a 7-Eleven parking lot in the town of Waltham. I put the engine in park. I rested my forehead against the cold steering wheel. Finally, I let out a loud, broken cry. The pain was so deep it made my stomach hurt. I cried for the little girl who just wanted a mother. I cried for the $15 vanilla cake sitting on the hallway table next to my empty room. I had given her all my money. I had fixed all her problems. But to her I was just a machine that paid bills. My phone buzzed loudly on the passenger seat, breaking the silence. I sat up and wiped my wet face. I looked at the digital clock on the dashboard. It was exactly 4:50 p.m. 20 minutes had passed since I drove out of her driveway. I picked up the phone. It was a text message from my mother. It read, "Return it now, or you are going to jail." I stared at the bright screen. The tears in my eyes stopped completely. My mother really thought she had all the power. She thought I was just a scared, weak girl who would turn the truck around, beg for forgiveness, and sleep in my car while her golden son took my room. But she forgot one very important detail. I am a financial data analyst. I do not deal with fear. I deal with numbers, facts, and legal records. A sudden, sharp memory flashed in my mind. Because I always fixed her problems, my mother made me do the accounting for her business, Thalassa Thorne Real Estate. 2 months ago, she bought this $60,000 truck in pure cash. She told everyone she had a great month selling houses. But I had seen the digital bank ledgers. When people buy a house, they give money to the real estate agent to hold safely in a special bank account. This is called an escrow account. By law, you cannot touch this money. It is illegal. But my mother's business was failing. So, on March 12, 2024, she secretly took $60,000 from the escrow trust account of her oldest client, an 80-year-old man named Mr. Silas Abernathy. She used his stolen money to buy this prize truck. In the eyes of the law, this truck was not a vehicle. It was stolen property. I looked at her text message again. A strange, broken laugh escaped my lips. I typed a short reply on my phone. Sure thing. I reached into my black laptop bag on the floor. I pulled out my heavy work computer and a small silver USB flash drive. In my job, I always keep backups of every financial record I touch. It is a strict rule. It was my safety net. I opened the laptop, found the exact bank transfer receipt from March 12, and copied it to the USB drive. I started the engine again. I did not drive back to her house. I drove exactly 3 miles down the road and parked in front of the Waltham Police Department. I walked into the bright, quiet police station. My clothes were a little wet from the rain. I walked straight to the front desk. A police officer named Sergeant Gannon looked up from his paperwork. "How can I help you, miss?" he asked kindly. I placed the heavy truck keys on the wooden counter. Then, I placed the small silver USB drive right next to them. "I am turning in a stolen vehicle," I said in a calm, flat voice. The silver Ford F-150 parked outside was bought using stolen client funds. My mother, Thalassa, committed wire fraud and theft from an elderly client. All the bank records, exact transfer dates, and forged signatures are on this drive. The truck itself is stolen property. Sergeant Gannon stopped smiling. He looked at me closely, realizing I was completely serious. He carefully picked up the USB drive and plugged it into his computer. As he clicked through the organized digital files, his eyes got very wide. The numbers did not lie. I sat on a hard wooden bench in the waiting area. The clock on the wall ticked slowly. Exactly an hour later, at 5:50 p.m., my phone started ringing. The screen showed Callahan's name. I let it ring. He called again immediately. I finally pressed the green button and held it to my ear. "Elowen," Callahan yelled. His voice was shaking with pure panic. I could hear loud noises in the background. "What did you do?" "2 police cars just showed up at the house. They put Mom in handcuffs. They are reading her rights for possessing stolen property and wire fraud." "Elowen, they are taking her away in the rain. You have to fix this." I listened to the loud red and blue police sirens coming through the phone. I could hear my mother screaming in the background, telling the officers it was a mistake, telling them they were ruining her perfect white blouse. The perfect image of our family was finally breaking into a million pieces. "You let her kick me out on my birthday, Callahan," I said softly. My voice was completely steady, showing no emotion at all. She wanted me to return the truck. I just returned it to its rightful owner. Good luck with the house bills. I hung up the phone. I blocked his number. I walked out of the police station into the cold Boston rain. I had nothing but my 2 bags, but for the first time in 26 years I could finally breathe. That night, the heavy Boston rain did not stop. I walked along the wet, dark highway until I found a cheap motel called the Red Roof Inn. I paid $89 for one night using the last few dollars in my checking account. The room smelled like old smoke and strong cleaning soap. I did not take off my wet clothes. I just lay down on the thin mattress, pulled my knees to my chest, and stared at the blinking red light of the smoke detector on the ceiling. I did not sleep a single minute. My mind was running like a fast machine. The next morning was Monday, May 20, 2024, the day after my 26th birthday. I put on my only dry work suit from my black suitcase. I took the early train into downtown Boston. I walked into the tall glass building of my company, Beacon Financial Data Corp, at exactly 7 a.m. The office was empty and quiet. I sat at my desk and turned on my computer monitors. A few minutes later, the head of risk management walked in. His name was Gideon Merrick. He was a tall, quiet man in his 50s who always wore dark gray suits. He was famous in our company for being extremely strict, but very fair. Gideon stopped walking when he saw my 2 large suitcases pushed under my desk. He looked at the bags. Then he looked at my pale, tired face. "You are very early, Elowen," Gideon said smoothly, holding his morning coffee. "Or did you forget to go home last night?" I looked at my computer screen. "I do not have a home anymore, Mr. Merrick. I will find a cheap room to rent on my lunch break. My bags will not be in the way, I promise." Gideon did not show any pity. He did not ask emotional questions. In the financial world, you do not cry, you just solve the problem. He took a sip of his coffee. "I own a small studio apartment in South Boston. The person renting it moved out last week. It has a bed and a small kitchen. You can move your bags there tonight. Pay me the rent when your next paycheck comes." I looked up at him. My eyes burned, but I held my tears back. "Thank you, Mr. Merrick. I will work extra hours to repay the favor." "You will repay me by doing excellent work today," he said calmly. He placed a thick blue folder on my desk. "I need you to trace some hidden property assets for a new corporate client. Use the Massachusetts Registry of Deeds database. Look for any hidden names on the property titles. People always leave a paper trail when they are greedy." Gideon walked away to his office. He did not know it, but he had just handed me the key to my own past. I spent the morning doing exactly what Gideon taught me. I logged into the public property database. I searched for the client's records. It was very easy to see who really owned a house, even if they tried to hide it. Around 1 p.m., I took a small break. I was eating a dry sandwich at my desk. My mind drifted back to my mother in Callahan. Why did she kick me out yesterday? Why not a month ago? Why not next year? She hated me for 26 years. But she let me stay because I paid the bills. So why exactly 1 week before my 26th birthday? In my line of work, we have a rule. If the timing feels strange, follow the money. My fingers hovered over the keyboard. Slowly, I typed the address of our large, beautiful house in the rich suburb. The house I had lived in my entire life. The house my mother always said was hers. I hit the search button. The legal deed for the house popped up on my screen. I started reading the small black text. Suddenly, the dry sandwich in my mouth felt like sand. My heart began to beat very fast against my ribs. The house did not belong to my mother. The owner listed on the official deed was the Evander Thorne Family Trust. Evander was my father. He died in a car accident when I was only 4 years old. I barely remembered him. I scrolled down to the legal details of the trust. My eyes scanned the lines of heavy legal words until I found the most important sentence. Upon the 26th birthday of the youngest living child, the trust shall be completely dissolved. The property, along with the attached bank account of $250,000, shall be divided equally between the surviving children. I stopped breathing. The office around me faded away. I was the youngest child. My 26th birthday was yesterday. I kept reading the fine print. There was a special clause at the very bottom. If a child has permanently abandoned the family residence before their 26th birthday, their portion of the trust is legally given to the remaining child. The dots connected in my brain like a bright flash of lightning. It was never about Callahan's new girlfriend moving in. It was never about a lack of space in the house. It was a perfectly planned robbery. My mother and Callahan needed me to physically leave the house before my 26th birthday. By packing my bags and forcing me to drive away in anger, they created a legal record that I had abandoned the home. Callahan was the remaining child. He would get the entire house and the entire $250,000. A sick feeling hit my stomach. The $3,140 property tax bill she made me pay last Tuesday? I quickly checked the payment records on my bank app. The money did not go to the city tax office. It went to a private law firm. I had paid the legal fees for the lawyer who was helping them steal my own inheritance. Callahan knew. He sat at the kitchen table drinking his orange juice, watching me drain my bank account, knowing he was about to steal $250,000 from me. He was the quiet partner, the silent winner. I sat back in my office chair. The rain beat heavily against the glass window of the building. The little girl inside me who wanted her mother's love was finally completely dead. I picked up my pen. I pulled out a clean yellow notepad. I wrote down the name of the law firm my mother used. I was not going to cry anymore. I was going to audit their entire lives. That evening, at 6:30 p.m., I took the subway to South Boston. Gideon Merrick's studio apartment was very small. It was only 300 square feet. The walls were made of old red brick, and the single window looked out at a dark brick alley. The mattress was thin and rested flat on the floor. There was no television, no dining table, and no expensive lavender perfume. I unlocked the door, walked inside, and locked the deadbolt behind me. I sat on the edge of the mattress. It was cold and dusty, but for the first time in my life, nobody was going to slide a bill across a table and tell me I was a mistake. This small, cold room was 100% mine. I unpacked my 2 black suitcases. I placed my work clothes on the 3 plastic hangers in the closet. My rebuilding had officially started. Over the next 3 weeks, I turned myself into a ghost. I woke up at 5 a.m. every day. I worked 12-hour shifts at Beacon Financial. I ate cheap $2 noodles for dinner. When my first paycheck arrived on June 7, 2024, I immediately transferred $950 for the rent to Gideon. I saved every other penny. I needed a war chest if I was going to fight a legal battle. But I also knew my limits. I was a data analyst. I understood numbers, but I did not understand the deep, complicated rules of family trust law. I needed someone who did. On Tuesday, June 11th, during my lunch break, I walked down to the 8th floor of our office building. This was the corporate legal compliance department. I walked over to the desk of a junior legal officer named Merritt Winslow. Merritt was 28 years old, wore round glasses, and always spoke very fast. She was brilliant at reading complicated legal contracts, but she was terrible at organizing financial spreadsheets. I placed a neat, perfectly organized digital spreadsheet on a USB drive on her desk. "I finished cleaning up the data for your quarterly compliance report," I told her quietly. "It will save you 3 days of typing." Merritt looked at the USB drive, then looked up at me. She smiled in relief. "Elowen, you are a lifesaver. I was going to be working all weekend on this." "What do I owe you? Coffee? Lunch?" I looked around to make sure nobody was listening. "I need 30 minutes of your time, off the company clock. I need you to look at a private property deed and a family trust document. I need to know how someone triggers an abandonment clause." Merritt's smile faded. She saw the serious, dead look in my eyes. She nodded slowly. "Meet me in the corner coffee shop downstairs at 5:30 p.m. Later that evening, the coffee shop was loud with people leaving work. Merritt and I sat at a small table in the far back corner. I handed her the printed pages of the Evander Thorne Family Trust and the receipt for the $3,240 I had paid to Royce and Hughes Legal Associates. Merritt put on her glasses. For 10 minutes, she did not say a word. She just read the fine print with a yellow highlighter in her hand. Finally, she put the papers down. She took a slow sip of her black coffee. "Your mother and brother executed a textbook legal freeze-out," Merritt said, keeping her voice low. "The trust clearly states you get half the house and $125,000 on your 26th birthday. But this abandonment clause at the bottom, it is a loophole. If you permanently leave the house willingly before the date, you forfeit your share." "I did not leave willingly," I said, my voice tight. She packed my bags. She told me I had to leave on May 19th. "The law does not care about what she said," Merritt explained gently. "The law only cares about what is on paper. For Mr. Royce, the lawyer you paid with your own money, to legally remove you from the trust, he needed proof. Your mother had to sign a sworn affidavit of abandonment. It is a legal document signed under penalty of perjury. She likely wrote a statement saying you packed your own bags, walked out of the house, and abandoned the family voluntarily." I felt my hands shake under the table. My own mother had stood in front of a lawyer, raised her right hand, and lied to the state. "And the lawyer?" I asked. "Mr. Royce? He just believed her?" Merritt tapped the $3,240 receipt. Mr. Royce is a private estate lawyer. He gets paid to process paperwork, not to investigate family feelings. If his client, your mother, signs a sworn statement, he files it with the court. He probably filed the paperwork on Monday morning, the exact day after your birthday. I stared at the yellow highlighted words on the paper. So, how do I prove she lied under oath? Merritt leaned forward, resting her arms on the table. You need a paper trail, Elowen. You need documented proof that you did not leave voluntarily, or proof that she was actively forcing you out around that exact date. Do you have any emails? Any text messages from that day? My mind instantly flashed back to the dark 7-Eleven parking lot in Waltham, the heavy rain, the cold steering wheel, and the text message my mother sent me 20 minutes after I drove away. Return it now or you are going to jail. And then, the police report I filed at the Waltham Police Department at 5:50 p.m. that exact same day. A public, time-stamped government record proving I was threatened, and proving she had committed a crime using stolen client money. A slow, cold energy spread through my chest. The puzzle pieces were snapping together. My mother thought she had played a perfect game, but she had left her fingerprints all over the board. Yes, I told Merritt quietly, looking straight into her eyes. I have a time-stamped police report from the exact day she claimed I abandoned the house. And I have her text messages threatening me. Merritt's eyes widened. A sharp, professional smile appeared on her face. Elowen, Merritt said softly, if she signed a sworn affidavit claiming you left peacefully, and you have a police report from the same day proving she threatened you, that is perjury. That is a felony. And if Mr. Royce knew about the police arrest and still filed the false affidavit, he can lose his law license. I picked up my papers and slid them back into my folder. The pain in my heart was still there, but it was now completely covered in ice. Merritt, I asked calmly, how much do you charge per hour to represent me privately? The month of June turned into July. The summer heat in Boston became heavy and wet. Inside my small 300-square-foot apartment in South Boston, a cheap window air conditioner hummed loudly all night. I did not mind the noise. The cold air kept me awake, and being awake meant I could work. My small room had slowly turned into a war room. The brick walls were covered in sticky notes, printed bank ledgers, and legal timelines. Merritt Winslow officially became my private lawyer. Because we were co-workers and she knew my financial situation, she agreed to a very strict payment plan. I paid her $300 every Friday from my paycheck. She told me it was the best investment I would ever make. On Tuesday, July 2024, Merritt came to my apartment after work. She brought a cheap pepperoni pizza in a greasy cardboard box. She sat cross-legged on my thin mattress, wearing her work clothes, typing fast on her silver laptop. I sat on the floor with my back against the cold brick wall. I was holding a digital tablet, looking at the public records for Suffolk County. Okay, Merritt said, pushing her round glasses up her nose. I have been looking into Mr. Royce, the lawyer who filed the abandonment papers. He is not a very clean lawyer. He has 2 previous complaints from the state bar for filing false property deeds. He takes fast money to look the other way. If we threaten his law license, he will turn against your mother in 1 second to save himself. I nodded slowly, but my mind was stuck on a different problem. Merritt, I said, putting my tablet down. There is a missing puzzle piece. My mother is broke. Her real estate business is failing. We know she stole $60,000 from an old client just to buy a truck, which I turned into the police. The police arrested her for wire fraud on May 19th. Right, Merritt said, chewing a piece of pizza. So, criminal defense lawyers in Boston cost a minimum of $20,000 just to start a case, I explained, tracing a pattern on the floor with my finger. Plus, she had to pay bail money to get out of jail that night. Where did she get the cash? She had absolutely nothing left. I gave her my last $3,140 on May 14th. Merritt stopped chewing. She looked at me. In the financial world, money never just appears out of thin air. It always leaves a trail. Check the house, Merritt whispered. I quickly picked up my tablet. I logged back into the Massachusetts Registry of Deeds. I pulled up the public records for the beautiful house in the wealthy suburb. I looked at the history of the property for the month of May. A new, heavy digital document was sitting right there. It was filed on May 26, 2024, exactly 3 days after my birthday, and 3 days after she was arrested. I found it, I said. My voice was tight and cold. It is a HELOC, a home equity line of credit, Merritt said, her eyes getting wide. Read the details. I opened the document. On May 26th, The bank approved a $150,000 loan against the value of the house. The documents state that the trust was successfully dissolved because the youngest child, me, abandoned the property. It lists Callahan as the sole 100% owner of the house now. I zoomed in on the bottom of the digital page. There were 2 signatures in black ink. The first signature was my mother's. Her handwriting was messy and shaking, probably because she was terrified of going to prison for stolen property. The second signature belonged to Callahan. His signature was perfectly neat, smooth, and careful. A deep, sickening feeling washed over my chest. I closed my eyes and pictured Callahan sitting at the kitchen table on May 14th. I remembered him drinking his premium orange juice, not looking up from his phone, while my mother forced me to empty my savings account. I remembered him telling me, "Just pay the bill, Elowen, do not upset her." For 26 years, I thought Callahan was just a quiet, lazy boy who got lucky because our mother loved him more. I thought he was just a silent witness to my pain. I was wrong. An enabler is not a victim. An enabler is a silent partner who just likes to keep his hands clean. Callahan knew the plan the whole time. He let my mother do the dirty work of kicking me out, so he could take my $125,000 share of the house. And the very second I was gone, he signed a paper to take out a $150,000 loan to pay for her criminal defense lawyer and fund his own comfortable life with his new girlfriend, Ainsley. They were using my stolen inheritance to pay for the crimes she committed against someone else. They took out the loan based on a false sworn affidavit, Merritt said quietly, breaking the silence in the room. Elowen, that is bank fraud. That is a federal crime. If the bank finds out they lied about you abandoning the property, the bank will immediately demand the $150,000 back in full. If they cannot pay it back in 30 days, the bank will take the house. I finished the sentence. I looked at the brick wall of my tiny hot apartment. My mother had packed my winter coats in a cardboard box and told me I was a mistake. Callahan had watched me drag my heavy suitcases out the door on my birthday. They thought they had won the game. They thought I would just disappear into the city and cry. "We are not going to sue them yet," I told Merritt. My voice was no longer shaking. It was hard, like cold steel. "If we sue them now, they will just drag it out in family court for years. We are going to let the bank do the fighting for us." Merritt closed her laptop. A sharp, dangerous smile appeared on her face. "How?" "I am a financial data analyst," I said, standing up from the floor. "I know exactly how corporate banks assess risk. We are going to send a certified, legally binding notice of dispute directly to the fraud department of the bank that issued the loan. We will include the police report, the text messages, and a draft of our perjury lawsuit against Mr. Royce. When a major bank realizes a massive loan is secured by a fraudulent legal document, they do not ask polite questions. They freeze everything immediately." "Draft the notice, Merritt," I said, looking out the small window into the dark alley. "Let's turn off their money." August moved into the city of Boston, bringing thick heat and bright sunshine. It had been 3 months since the day my mother packed my bags. In those 3 months, I did not call her. I did not check her social media. I just worked. On Friday, August 16, 2024, Gideon Merrick called me into his large glass corner office. He was wearing his usual dark gray suit, looking at a printed spreadsheet I had given him the day before. "Elowen," Gideon said, keeping his eyes on the paper. "You found a $400,000 accounting error in the client's offshore accounts. The senior analysts missed it completely." "I just followed the dates, Mr. Merrick," I replied softly, keeping my hands folded in my lap. "When the dates do not match the bank statements, the truth is always hiding in the middle." Gideon finally looked up at me. His eyes carefully studied my face. "You look different these days. You are much quieter, but your work is completely fearless. I am authorizing a $2,500 performance bonus for you this month. Keep it up." "Thank you, sir," I said. My voice was steady, but inside my heart felt a warm glow. I was no longer the scared girl who handed over her savings just to buy a fake smile. I was earning my own value. That evening, I used a small part of my bonus to buy a soft gray rug and a warm yellow reading lamp for my tiny 300-square-foot apartment. I placed a small green snake plant on the windowsill. The brick room finally felt like a real home. It was small, but it was safe. Nobody here was going to ask me to pay their bills. Nobody here was going to tell me I was a mistake. At 7 p.m., Merritt knocked on my door. She was holding a thick, heavy yellow envelope. "It is ready," Merritt said, dropping her work bag on my new gray rug. We sat on the floor under the light of my new yellow lamp. We opened the thick yellow envelope. Inside was a 40-page legal packet. We had spent weeks making it perfect. The cover page was titled, "Notice of Dispute and Notification of Loan Fraud." It was addressed directly to the Executive Fraud Department at First New England Bank, the exact bank that gave my mother and Callahan the $150,000 loan. I carefully looked through the pages. Page 4 was a copy of my mother's sworn affidavit, where she lied and said I abandoned the family home. Page 5 was the time-stamped police report from the Waltham Police Department, proving she had threatened to send me to jail on the exact same day. Page 6 was a printed screenshot of her text message, "Return it now or you are going to jail." When a corporate bank receives proof that a property loan was secured using perjury and a false deed, they act automatically, I said quietly, touching the thick paper. Merritt nodded, adjusting her round glasses. They will not call your mother to ask about her feelings. The bank's computer system will simply freeze the $150,000 line of credit. Any money she tries to take out will be blocked. And because the loan is now a severe legal risk, the bank will trigger a default clause. They will demand the entire amount back immediately. And when she cannot pay it back, I whispered, the bank will start the process to take the house, Merritt finished. And Mr. Royce, the lawyer who filed the fake papers. I included a draft of the complaint I am sending to the Massachusetts Bar Association. He is going to panic. The next morning, August 17th, Merritt and I walked together to the main post office on Milk Street. The air inside the post office smelled like old paper and glue. I walked up to the counter. I handed the thick yellow envelope to the postal worker. I need to send this via certified mail, with a return receipt signature required, I said clearly. The postal worker weighed the heavy envelope. He stamped it with a loud thump. He handed me a small green tracking slip. I held that small green piece of paper in my hand as we walked back out into the bright Boston sunshine. The trap was officially set. The clock was now ticking, and my mother and Callahan had no idea. For the next 10 days, I lived my life in complete peace. I drank black coffee. I read my books on financial risk management. I watered my small green plant. I slept deeply on my thin mattress. Then, on Tuesday, August 27, 2024, at exactly 2:15 p.m., my desk phone at work rang. It was not my cell phone. It was my direct private office line at Beacon Financial. Very few people had this number. I picked up the black plastic receiver. Elowen Thorne speaking. The voice on the other end was a man. He was breathing heavily, trying to sound calm, but I could hear the sharp panic vibrating in his throat. "Miss Thorne," the man said quickly. "This is Alaric Royce, from Royce and Hughes Legal Associates. I received a copy of your packet from the bank's fraud department this morning. I think there has been a massive misunderstanding regarding your mother's sworn affidavit." My eyes slowly moved to the window of my office, looking out at the city below. The bank had frozen the money. The fire had officially started. "There is no misunderstanding, Mr. Royce," I said in a completely flat, ice-cold voice. "The numbers never lie." Before he could say another word, I gently placed the phone back on the receiver. I did not need to argue. I just needed to let them burn. The days following Mr. Royce's panicked phone call were very quiet. September arrived, and the hot Boston air finally began to cool down. The leaves on the trees along Tremont Street started turning yellow and brown. I kept working my 12-hour shifts. I drank my plain black coffee. I did not look back. But in the financial world, when you freeze a bank account, the silence never lasts long. When people run out of money, they get desperate. On Friday, September 6, 2024, at exactly 5:15 p.m., I packed my laptop into my black bag and took the elevator down to the main lobby of Beacon Financial. I walked through the tall spinning glass doors and stepped out onto the busy sidewalk. A man stepped directly in front of me, blocking my path to the subway station. It was Callahan. I stopped walking. I looked at him closely. He did not look like the relaxed, protected golden boy who drank premium orange juice at 10 a.m. His hair was messy. He was wearing a wrinkled gray shirt, and there were dark, heavy bags under his eyes. He looked small. He looked tired. "Elowen," he said. His voice was thick, trying to sound warm and brotherly. He reached his hand out, trying to touch my shoulder. I took one very slow, deliberate step back. I did not say a word. I just looked at his hand until he awkwardly pulled it back and put it in his pocket. "Elowen, please," Callahan said, looking around at the busy business people walking past us. He lowered his voice. "You will not answer your phone. I had to wait out here for 2 hours. We need to talk. Mom is not doing well." I held my black laptop bag tightly. "I am off the clock, Callahan. State your business quickly." He blinked. He was not used to me speaking to him like a business transaction. For 26 years I had always been the emotional one, the the one who cried, the one who begged to be heard. Now I was just a cold wall. The bank froze the home equity loan on Tuesday, Callahan whispered, leaning in closer. Mom went to the ATM, and her card was declined. Her criminal defense lawyer just called this morning. He said if he does not get a $10,000 payment by Monday, he is dropping her wire fraud case. She could actually go to prison, Elowen, real prison. I felt a tiny, sharp thrill in my chest, but I kept my face completely blank. That sounds like a serious legal problem. You should probably get a job to help her. Callahan's face turned red. The polite brother act started to slip. Elowen, stop it. This is not a game. The bank sent a letter saying they are going to foreclose on the house because of a fraudulent legal filing. Mr. Royce is refusing to answer our calls. You did this. You sent something to the bank. I sent them the truth, I said evenly. I sent them proof that you and your mother committed perjury and bank fraud to steal my $125,000 inheritance. Callahan looked at the ground, shifting his weight. He tried his favorite trick, gaslighting. You are overreacting. Mom was just stressed that day. She did not mean what she said on your birthday. We were going to give you your share of the house eventually. You just left so fast. I stared at him. Did Ainsley move into my room? Callahan stopped talking. He swallowed hard. Did she? I asked again. My voice was very quiet, but it cut through the street noise like a knife. Yes, he finally whispered. She moved in on Monday. So, you moved your girlfriend into my bedroom exactly 24 hours after you kicked me out on my birthday. You signed a federal loan document claiming I abandoned the family, and you planned to use my inheritance money to pay for Mom's criminal lawyer. I tilted my head slightly. You did not come here today because you miss your sister Callahan. You came here because your free money machine finally broke. His hands curled into fists at his sides. The mask was completely gone now. His eyes were wide and angry. You are going to destroy our family over money? She is our mother. Blood is thicker than water, Elowen. DNA is just biology, I replied flatly. And water is exactly what you left me in when you threw me out in the rain. You are not my family. You are just two people who live in a house that the bank is about to own. I stepped around him. If you do not call the bank and fix this, you will regret it. Callahan hissed behind me. His voice was desperate and shaking. I did not turn around. I just walked down the concrete steps into the subway station. The dark tunnel swallowed the sunlight. My heart was beating fast, but my mind was completely clear. The tension had finally reached its peak. The confrontation proved exactly what I needed to know. They had no backup plan. They were trapped in their own lies. The final collapse was coming, and I was going to watch every single second of it. September 12, 2024. Thursday morning. The heavy rain returned to Boston, washing the city streets clean. I was sitting at my desk at Beacon Financial when Merritt Winslow walked over. She did not have her usual bright, professional smile. She looked completely serious. She slid a thin gray folder onto my desk. Mr. Royce officially folded, Merritt said quietly, pulling up an empty chair next to me. I opened the folder. Inside was a formal legal letter from Royce and Hughes Legal Associates. It was addressed directly to the Executive Fraud Department at First New England Bank, with a copy sent to Merritt as my legal counsel. Read the second paragraph, Merritt instructed, tapping the thick paper with her pen. I read the black text carefully. My client, Mrs. Thalassa Thorne, intentionally provided false information regarding the residency status of her daughter, Elowen Thorne. I was unaware of the fraudulent nature of the sworn affidavit at the time of filing. I am formally withdrawing as Mrs. Thorne's legal counsel, effective immediately. Mr. Royce was terrified of losing his law license. To save his own career, he gave the bank exactly what they needed. He admitted in writing that my mother had lied to the court. What happens now? I asked, looking up at Merritt. The bank's legal team moves in for the kill, Merritt replied, adjusting her round glasses. Without a lawyer to protect her, your mother is completely exposed. The bank filed a formal notice of default in Suffolk County Court this morning. I checked the public system. They are demanding the full $150,000 back in exactly 20 days. If she does not pay by October 2, they will seize the house. I leaned back in my office chair. For years I had managed her spreadsheets. I knew every single penny that came in and out of her real estate business. She did not have $150,000. She did not even have 5 times $100. And her criminal case? I asked softly. Her criminal defense lawyer officially dropped her yesterday, Merritt said, pulling out a second sheet of paper. Because she could not pay his $10,000 retainer fee, he walked away. Her next court date for the stolen truck money is October 15. The judge will force her to use a free public defender. The system is finally treating her like everyone else. I looked out the window at the gray clouds over the city. A strange feeling washed over my chest. It was not joy. It was not happiness. It was a heavy, cold peace. For 26 years, she believed she was untouchable because she looked perfect on the outside. But perfection is very expensive, and she had run out of my money to pay for it. On September 18th, exactly 6 days later, I received an email on my personal phone from an unknown address. I opened it. It was from Ainsley, Callahan's new girlfriend. Subject: please help. Elowen, I know you hate them, but things are really bad here. The power company turned off the electricity this morning because the bill has not been paid in 2 months. Your mom is crying in her room all day, and Callahan is just screaming at his phone. He lost his job at the gym because he was too stressed to show up. They keep blaming you. I am packing my bags to go back to my parents' house in Vermont. You were right to leave. I am sorry. I read the short email 3 times. I thought about the electricity bill. It was the same bill I used to pay on the 1st of every month without ever being asked. I did not reply to Ainsley. I simply pressed the delete button. She was a witness, not a player. She saw the sinking ship and did what any smart person would do. She jumped. Later that evening, I sat on the soft gray rug in my small South Boston apartment. I had my laptop open, building a new financial model for a corporate client. My cell phone rang. I checked the screen. It was a local Boston number, but I did not recognize it. I let it ring 3 times before I finally pressed the green button. Hello, this is Elowen, I said calmly. Elowen. The voice on the other end was very weak. It sounded like old dry paper. It was my mother. I stopped typing on my keyboard. I did not hang up, but I did not say anything either. The silence stretched between us. I could hear her taking shaking breaths on the other end of the line. The bank sent a man to the house today, she whispered. Her voice broke on the last word. He took pictures of the front yard. He put a yellow paper on the front door. Elowen, they are taking the house. I looked at the small green snake plant on my windowsill. I remembered the perfectly cut front garden she used to care about so much. I remembered the expensive lavender perfume and the crisp white blouses. You took a loan against a property you did not fully own, using a forged document, I said. My voice was completely flat, like I was explaining a basic math problem to a student. That is the mathematical consequence of bank fraud. I am your mother, she cried out suddenly, her polite mask finally shattering into a million pieces. You have to call your lawyer. Tell them the affidavit was a mistake. You have money now, Elowen. Callahan said you look like you are doing well. Just pay the bank the $10,000 for my criminal lawyer, and we can fix the house later. Please, you have to fix this. I closed my eyes. The little girl inside me, the one who just wanted to cut a $15 vanilla cake in the kitchen, took one final, quiet breath. I am a mistake you regret, Mom, I said softly, repeating the exact words she said to me on my birthday. And you cannot ask a mistake to fix your life. I ended the call. I blocked the new number. The confrontation was completely over. The final climax was about to begin. October 7th, 2024. The deadline day. The morning air in Boston was cold and sharp. I wore a dark blue business suit and my hair was tied back perfectly. Merritt walked next to me. We entered the tall glass building of First New England Bank at exactly 9:45 a.m. We took the silent elevator up to the 22nd floor. This was the executive legal department. We walked into a large conference room with a heavy wooden table and huge windows looking over the city. Sitting on the far side of the table were my mother and Callahan. I stopped in the doorway for a second. The change in my mother was shocking. There was no expensive lavender perfume filling the room. She was wearing a plain brown coat that looked slightly wrinkled. Her hair, which used to be perfectly styled every single morning, was flat and messy. She looked 10 years older. Beside her, Callahan was staring down at his hands. He looked small and completely defeated. The perfect, happy American family image was completely dead. They did not have a lawyer. They could not afford one. I sat down across from them. Merritt sat next to me, opening her silver laptop. A tall man in a gray suit walked into the room. He carried a thick stack of papers. "Good morning," he said in a very serious voice. "I am Mr. Langdon, head of fraud recovery for First New England Bank. We are here to settle the fraudulent $150,000 loan taken against the property." He placed the thick stack of papers in the middle of the table. "Mrs. Thorne," Mr. Langdon said, looking directly at my mother, "because you used a false legal document to secure a federal bank loan, we have the right to involve the FBI. Bank fraud carries a heavy prison sentence. However, The bank just wants its money back quickly. My mother stared at the papers. Her hands were shaking violently. We are offering a deed in lieu of foreclosure, Mr. Langdon explained smoothly. This means you will voluntarily give the complete ownership of the house to the bank today. You will pack your things and leave by 5 p.m. tomorrow. In exchange, the bank will clear the $150,000 debt, and we will not press federal criminal charges. You walk away with $0, but you stay out of federal prison. The room was completely silent. The only sound was the ticking of the large clock on the wall. But the title of the house is legally messy, Mr. Langdon continued, turning to look at me. Because Miss Elowen Thorne was illegally removed from the original family trust, she still has a legal claim to the property. For the bank to take the house, Miss Thorne must also sign the paper, releasing her claim. Mr. Langdon slid a heavy black pen across the wooden table toward me. My mother slowly lifted her head. Her eyes were red and wet. She looked at me across the large table. For the first time in 26 years, she was the one sitting at the bottom, and I was the one holding all the power. "Elowen," she whispered. Her voice cracked. "Please, you get a good salary now. If you just pay the bank the $150,000, I can keep the house. We can go back to how it was. I can make you a birthday cake. Just pay the bill, Elowen." I looked at the woman who gave birth to me. I remembered her sliding the tax bill across the kitchen table. I remembered her telling me I was a mistake. "I am a financial data analyst, Mom," I said in a calm, completely flat voice. "I look at bad investments all day. Pouring my hard-earned money into a house you stole from me, just to protect your fake public image, is a terrible investment." Callahan finally looked up. His face was twisted with weak anger. "You are enjoying this. You are sitting there in your nice suit, watching us lose everything. You have a free place to stay, and we are going to be homeless tomorrow. Have some mercy." I did not raise my voice. I leaned forward just a little bit. "Mercy?" I asked quietly. "Callahan, you moved your girlfriend into my bedroom exactly 24 hours after you watched Mom throw me out in the rain. You signed a federal loan document to steal my future. You did not show mercy when you thought you were winning. You are just upset because the math finally caught up to you." Callahan opened his mouth to speak, but no words came out. He looked back down at the table, completely broken. I picked up the heavy black pen. I did not feel angry anymore. I just felt clean. I pulled the legal document toward me and signed my name on the bottom line in blue ink. By signing it, I gave up my $125,000 inheritance, but I also cut the heavy chain around my neck forever. I pushed the paper and the pen across the table to my mother. "Sign the paper, Mom," I said softly. "The bank is waiting." She stared at the black pen. A single tear fell down her cheek and hit the wooden table. Slowly, with a shaking hand, she picked up the pen. She signed her perfect house, her perfect image, and her entire fake life away. She put the pen down and covered her face with her hands, crying silently into the quiet room. Merritt closed her laptop. We both stood up from our chairs. I did not say goodbye. I turned around and walked out of the cold glass conference room. I did not look back at them. The truth had finally balanced the books. The elevator ride down to the main lobby was completely silent. When the metal doors finally opened, I walked out of the tall glass building and stepped onto the busy Boston sidewalk. The cold October wind hit my face, but I did not shiver. I took a very deep breath. The air smelled like car exhaust and roasted coffee from a nearby food cart. But to me, it smelled like pure freedom. Merritt walked quietly next to me. She did not say a word until we reached the corner of the street. She stopped, looked at me, and gently touched my arm. "You just gave up a lot of money, Elowen," she said softly. Her round glasses caught the morning sunlight. "Are you going to be okay?" I looked down at my hands. They were not shaking anymore. For my entire life, those hands had worked to pay bills that were not mine. They had typed spreadsheets to fix problems I did not create. "I did not give up anything, Merritt," I replied, a small, genuine smile forming on my lips. "I just bought my life back. It was the best investment I have ever made." Merritt smiled back. We walked to a small cafe, bought 2 large black coffees, and drank them in the warm sunlight. I did not look back at the bank building. I did not look back at my mother. The winter of 2024 was very cold and covered Boston in deep white snow. I spent the holidays in my small brick apartment in South Boston. But I was not sad. I was completely at peace. I worked extremely hard at Beacon Financial. Without the heavy stress of my mother's fake life pulling me down, my mind was sharper than ever. In January 2025, Gideon Merrick called me into his office. He handed me a new contract. He promoted me to Senior Financial Data Analyst. The new job came with a large pay increase. "You earned this, Eloin," Gideon said, his strict face softening into a proud look. "You keep the books perfectly clean. I trust you completely." That same week, I packed my 2 black suitcases. I said goodbye to the tiny 300-square-foot brick room that saved my life. I rented a beautiful bright apartment in Cambridge, just across the river. It had large glass windows, warm wooden floors, and a huge modern kitchen. I bought a soft white couch and filled the corners with tall green plants. When I turned on the lights at night, the whole place glowed with warmth. Nobody ever asked me for rent money. Nobody ever told me I was a mistake. I never spoke to my mother or Callahan again. But in the financial world, public records are always open. I did not need to call them to know exactly how their story ended. On October 15, 2024, my mother went to criminal court for stealing the $60,000 from the old man's trust account. Because she had no expensive lawyer, she had to accept the harsh reality of the legal system. She took a plea deal to avoid a federal prison cell. The judge gave her 5 years of strict probation. She was legally forced to pay back every single dollar to the old man, plus heavy court fines. To pay her legal debt, my mother had to get a job. A coworker told me they saw her working at a small discount grocery store in a town far away from her old rich friends. She wears a green plastic apron and scans barcodes at the checkout register for minimum wage. Her perfect white blouses are gone. Her expensive lavender perfume is gone. Callahan did not do any better. Without the big house to hide in, and without my bank account to pay for his food, he finally had to face the real world. He rents a tiny dark room in a cheap basement. He works night shifts at a local gas station, cleaning floors and wiping counters. The beautiful house with the perfectly cut front garden was sold at a bank auction in November 2024. A completely new family lives there now. Sometimes, when I walk through the city park on a Sunday afternoon, I see mothers and daughters laughing together. I see them holding hands and sharing ice cream. When I see that, I still feel a tiny sharp sting in my chest. I think about the $15 vanilla birthday cake sitting on the hallway table. But I know the truth now. The sting is not for the mother I had. It is for the mother I always wanted, but never existed. I did not let the pain turn my heart to stone. Instead, I built my own circle of loyalty. Every Friday night, Merritt comes to my bright Cambridge apartment. We order greasy pepperoni pizza, sit on my soft white couch, and talk for hours. On Thanksgiving, Gideon Merrick invited me to his house. I sat at a large table with his wife Delphine and children. We ate warm turkey and laughed loudly. They did not want my money. They did not want my obedience. They just wanted me to be there. It is Sunday, August 23rd, 2026. The time is exactly 10:48 p.m. The rain is still falling outside my large bedroom window in Cambridge. I close the heavy book about financial risk management and place it gently on my wooden nightstand. The yellow lamp beside my bed casts a soft, warm glow across the room. We are back exactly where this story began. But the woman lying in this bed tonight is very different from the scared girl who used to empty her bank account just to buy her mother's fake smile. Earlier this afternoon, I was walking near the downtown market. I was buying fresh green apples and a small bouquet of yellow sunflowers for my kitchen table. As I waited in line to pay, I checked my phone. There was a voicemail from an unknown number. I pressed play and held the speaker close to my ear. It was Callahan. His voice was completely different from the arrogant golden boy who used to drink premium orange juice while watching me suffer. He sounded exhausted. He sounded incredibly small. "Eloin," the voicemail said, filled with static from a cheap prepaid phone. "It is my birthday today. I turned 32. I am sitting alone in the dark break room at the gas station. Mom could not afford to buy me a card. We did not have a cake. I just wanted to hear your voice. I am so sorry, Eloin. I am so sorry we threw you away. I know you will not answer, but please, if you have a minute, just call me back. I am so tired." I stood on the sidewalk in the cool August wind. I listened to his heavy breathing on the recording. The busy street noise of Boston buzzed around me. A few years ago, that desperate, sad voice would have completely broken my heart. I would have rushed to my bank app, transferred $50 to his account, and begged him to let me back into the family. I would have traded my own peace just to fix his pain. But I am a financial data analyst. I know that a negative balance cannot be fixed by a single apology, and a broken foundation cannot support a safe house. They built their entire lives on a bridge made of lies and stolen money. They lit the fire themselves, and they burned that bridge to the ground. I did not feel anger. I did not feel a desire for revenge anymore. I just felt a profound, gentle sadness for two people who chose an expensive silver truck over a daughter and a sister. I pressed the red button on my screen. Message deleted. I permanently blocked the new number. I did not text back. I did not call. That is the new boundary. A line drawn in solid, unmovable concrete. Blood simply means you share the same biology, but true loyalty is what makes a real family. And you do not owe your loyalty to the people who smiled while they watched you drown. I walked back to my bright, safe Cambridge apartment. When I opened my heavy front door, the smell of warm cinnamon and baking bread filled the air. Merritt was standing in my modern kitchen, laughing loudly. She was wearing a funny green apron and trying to pull a fresh pizza out of the oven. Gideon and his wife, Delphine, were sitting on my soft white couch, pouring hot tea into small porcelain cups. "You are late, Elowen," Merritt shouted with a huge smile, waving a wooden spoon in the air. "The pizza is almost burned, and Gideon is already trying to steal all the extra cheese." Gideon chuckled gently, adjusting his comfortable gray sweater. "A good risk manager always takes his cut first, Elowen. Come sit down. We saved you the best slice." I looked at the three of them. I looked at the tall green plants in the corners of my living room. I looked at the beautiful, honest world I had built from the ashes of a $15 vanilla cake and a stolen inheritance. I took off my coat and hung it by the door. I walked into the kitchen, picked up a warm slice of food, and laughed with the people who actually loved me. These were the people who knew my true value, not just the balance of my checking account. The rain continues to fall against the glass tonight, washing the streets of Boston clean. The quiet pain that I carried for 26 years is entirely gone. My emotional ledgers are perfectly balanced. My heart is completely full. And for the very first time in my life, I am exactly where I belong. If you've been somebody's bank account so long they've forgotten your worth, take this as your sign. Cutting the funds isn't cruelty, it's justice. Share this with someone who needs it today. Tell me your story in the comments and subscribe. I'll see you in the next